We're live. Yay. Not making that mistake of redoing a whole stream and it didn't record. It's recorded. It is live. The seconds are at the top left-hand corner, which means it's 100% live. And it's back with another episode of Christian Fandom Geek Talk. I've got Omar, Jedi Warrior, Hero of the Republic, and just, you know, a very... I always say Omar, and I'm not saying it to just be nice to you. Omar is genuinely that smart. In most situations and scenario, he's the smartest guy in the room. Right, that's just genuine. That's just truth, guys. This guy, Omar, do you know what I'd love for you, man? I would love, because Omar, I know that if you had your own channel, like, because you're on my channel anyway, and we're friends, and it's like we link up and everything like that. So you helped me out with the channel amazingly. But I know if you had time to do your own channel, your channel would be like next level, man. There's a guy on YouTube called Comics Explained. I don't know if you've seen him.
Yeah, I follow him.
Yeah, he's amazing. You'd be on his level. You're on his level. Honestly, you'd be like the UK. You'd be like the UK version. Remember, he does that I think he probably does that as his job. So like, and with you being a designer and all your stuff, like you could get your banners and graphics looking good, man. You'd be blazing it, man. Some of the guys that watch this channel, I want them to invite Omar. Have Omar on your show. Now it has to be on here first, so like I'm the agent, so like there's a kind of booking fee, I mean, as long as I get my 10%, then we can talk. But there's a few guys and girls that are on Red 5 network, because Christian Fandom Geeks on Red 5, Law Be With You podcast is on Red 5. There's a few guys and girls that are on Red 5 that would like actually or Alex is just messaged, he said give me a second, so it's coming on, that would actually like love to your knowledge, and not just that, but also how you interact and how you think when it comes to deconstructing these issues, tropes, arguments in fandom and whatnot. So at Red 5, you need to talk to me. I'll get my 10%, and then I'll see what with Omar what we can do. It'd be a big fee though, so I'm not gonna lie. Dude, before Alex comes on, because we're going to talk about Marvel and DC villains kind of thing, but I had a kind of a bit of an opening topic, which I'll talk to when Alex comes on, to do with I'm fascinated with this Will Smith Chris Rock thing, because I watched the documentary on Netflix, the live show that Chris Rock did.
Okay.
I was watching it with the missus, and we were just laughing hysterically. Like, he's just like, I mean, he's quite clever. I hope you've seen it, by the way. But it was quite clever. Oh, hang on, Alex. Let me let this black man in right now. Let me let this black man right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm mobile at the moment. I'm just in the car.
Alex, man, what's up, man?
I'm good. How are you? How are you all doing?
Very good. Alex Rule Martin in the house. Alex is like the coolest black dude I know. Like, he's just the epitome of coolness. You look in the dictionary for coolness, there's a picture of Alex Rule Martin.
Goodness gracious. Please. You're too kind.
Now, this feels like Groundhog Day, because we've done this before, but it's not. There's no record of this transaction. But we've done this before.
True.
God in heaven knows we've done this before. And I had a mishap on StreamYard. I was very upset about it. It was not a great moment, and I was like, no, we got to get these guys back on again, because we were cooking. That was like we were cooking. We were cooking.
It was good.
So, guys, because obviously, like, there's people will come and watch the stream, but also people will watch the stream after the stream is finished as well. Start with Omar and then Alex. Just give a brief introduction of like what got you into fandom stuff. What's your favorite stuff in terms of your geek zone sort of stuff, and just a little bit about yourself as well.
Omar, you can start over.
Me first. Me, I don't know, man. I think I was just born a geek. I think born in '82, so came up in the kind of the deregulation of children's TV. So we had the trans. You know, basically they were all toy commercials. Didn't know then, but obviously, you know, looking back at it, but you know, so it was all Transformers and Thundercats and He-Man and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then I think probably like first got into like comics and stuff like with Thunderbirds, because I was like a proper like Thunderbirds fan, kind of like Stingray and stuff like that. So didn't know what it was called, but I was a Fanderson because Jerry Anderson was the one who created all those shows, and it kind of moved from there. So I think my kind of realm of comicdom is possibly of geekdom is probably like, you know, more kind of American superhero comics, gaming, and kind of general kind of love of kind of storytelling and stuff like that. So yeah. So and obviously movies, can't live without them. So
yeah, that's why Omar and myself like connect so much when it comes to like even in wrestling. We like wrestling because the storytelling involved in a wrestling feud, like just different types of stories. We love all that stuff. Alex, you're a geek as well. You're involved in the film industry as well. Tell the audience, Red 5, Fandom Collective, tell them about yourself, man.
Well, I think mine kind of started when I was about 14, probably. My mum bought me some Superman magazines. Well, they're not magazines, they're comics. I thought it was a magazine at the time, though. Comics. Some of the newer ones, though, like they weren't like the original stuff. It was kind of like the reprised versions or like the remastered versions of them. So the graphics in them, the illustrations were like off the chain, like they were incredible. And that's where it first kind of started. And I've always been interested in stories. I used to like to read. And then I think just the, you know, film and TV and how it can create a whole new different world. It just like opened it up for me. So I was addicted to like watching films, cartoons. I was just on everything really. So when it comes to like, I'm more of a general geek rather than a very specific. Like I can't always give you specific facts about something, but I can definitely join a conversation where I can say, oh yeah, I do know about that. Don't know as much as you, but I know enough.
No, Alex, we had a great conversation before on podcast. I think it's on podcast play on the Law Be With You podcast, and we were talking about Will Smith. We were talking about because I was vexed. We were talking about Will Smith, and it was when it was on Will Smith's YouTube channel, and he was talking about why he didn't accept the film role for The Matrix. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember, Alex, we were talking about it, and you were saying about Will Smith. We were going about like that. Will Smith didn't want to be known as the alien guy. It was a really interesting conversation, like how, you know, Will Smith was literally going to be Neo, and he just didn't get the script. He couldn't get his head around it. And, you know, obviously we know now, like we're thinking, hang on a minute, like Matrix 1 is one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. Like you think, well, what a mistake. Obviously, he's got Men in Black's been great anyway for him, but yeah, I remember we were talking about it not being the alien guy. That was a good conversation.
Yeah, two things in that. I liked Omar's reaction when he said the greatest science fiction of all time. He's like, and two, I feel like you bring me onto this stream because you feel like I'm a Will Smith specialist. So I'm gonna take that for a moment. Will Smith specialist.
Listen, Alex, can't just turn it down, man, because like, you know, they're not used to like three black guys on this channel. Like it's normally just like me by myself or me and Omar. So that's a lot of blackness for in one show at the moment, guys. Just tone it down a little bit.
Welcome to the source, people. Welcome to the source.
Yeah, for real. I wouldn't say Matrix culturally significant. Best science fiction movie, I thought.
No, not the best. In my estimate, it'd be in my top 5.
Okay.
It'd be in my top 5. I think just the fusion of like the martial arts. I think even the fact that they got philosophy into like an action film that actually was really watchable. Like, and it's not just like basic philosophy. Some of it's like quite quite deep ideas that you kind of be deconstructing to do with simulations and things like that. It's like you think, how have you got that in such an entertaining film? And they managed to do it in a way that's quite coherent. I thought that. Okay. So for that, I was like, fair play.
I've got a film for you to watch. Have you ever heard of Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, isn't that the one? Isn't that the anime one? And then
not the remake.
And then they made a remake of it with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, the remake doesn't exist. The original, the original Ghost in the Shell from 1995.
Yeah,
I mean, The Matrix pretty much ripped off most of that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of having like action and kind of a philosophy and stuff like that. Yeah, that was done in Ghost in the Shell. I mean, it's known that the Wachowskis actually brought in Ghost in the Shell in their pitch and said, "We kind of want to make this." I mean, there's even real specific things in Ghost in the Shell that's completely lifted. I mean, the whole head jacking right in the back of the neck.
Yeah,
that's from Ghost in the Shell. The falling green writing.
Yeah,
that's in Ghost in the Shell. Yeah.
Wow.
That's in Ghost in the Shell.
Wow, they really.
Have a watch of that film, and I'd actually love it. I'm not like kind of downing like Matrix. I do think it's a great film. I personally wouldn't put it in my top 10. I think there's better ones, but I do love the original. But I would just say, have a watch of Ghost in the Shell. I think it was quite a revelation, especially if you watch it with knowing what you know about Matrix.
Yeah.
And it has some really, really deep themes about what it means to be human and what does it mean to have a soul.
Oh wow, that'd be I'm gonna be all over that.
It's really interesting. I believe if you go to, I think it's on ITVX at the moment.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I'm sure so. It's streaming.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, Alex, he'll come back on. Okay, so Alex has been kidnapped. It was quite funny. It was like a floating head, wasn't it? Kind of thing on his thing. Hang on a minute, we got a comment here. Hi, James. How you doing, my friend? James has his own channel that promotes other channels, so it's nice. Thanks, James, for popping by, my friend. Don't forget to smash the like button as well. So Alex is coming back. Where are you, Alex? There we go. Alex.
Sorry about
that. Alex, a floating head. It's like Games Master. Do you remember Games Master? It's like the head.
Yeah.
Alex is the new Games Master. Thanks, James. Thank you very much. So I'm obsessed a little bit. So we're going to talk about the Marvel stuff in a bit, but I'm still obsessed with this Will Smith, Chris Rock feud because I watched the documentary, this live stand-up show on Netflix, and I thought it was really funny. He waited till the end to proper address the whole what happened. But I thought the points that he made were really, really good. Like the way like he went into just kind of deconstructed like how Will Smith was kind of what he did to him, how it made him feel, and then talking about other people have been saying the same thing, but he didn't. Will Smith said nothing to them. But then when it comes to Chris Rock, he gets clarted across his face, and like he talked about that. He really he really struggled with that. I mean, man, I can't even imagine that. I can't get my head around the fact that he did that he clarted the guy across the face in front of the whole world. I can't get my head around that at all. But like what do you think now? Because obviously, like Chris Rock has finally had a pop back at him. So what do you think happens now? You think like it can be resolved? That what should happen now? If you're Will Smith, what would you do now?
Nothing.
That's what there's nothing you really can do, can you?
Nothing and move on.
Really?
Just carry on making mediocre films.
Carry on making mediocre films.
Shots fired. That shots fired. That is Omar.
Omar hates
had this conversation. I don't hate Will Smith. I think he's so much potential. I just think he makes mediocre films.
That's fine, because people need to make mediocre films. There's a market out there for it, I believe. Because if all films are deep,
most of the
people aren't as self-reflective. It's true, but people who aren't as self-reflective need those films.
I get that. We had this conversation before anyway about, really, if you look at what the hit rates of Will Smith films are, they're not. It's not that often.
Yeah. So you can't. Do you not think there's not even one good Will Smith film that's like next level, or not really at all?
Oh no! As I said, Will Smith, I'm a fan, and I believe that he has made some great films, and I do think that he has the potential to make great films, but I think that he doesn't choose well.
Oh, okay, like Matrix, like I said about Matrix, full circle. Do you think? Okay, quick question. Do you think Jada is holding him back?
Nah, I think she's been good for his brand for so many years anyway. And I think things like what she has, like with like the Red Table, that's been like kind of a cultural. It's been a part of the cultural conversation for quite a while now. I don't think it's held him back. I think what held him back is just his film choices.
Okay. I mean, the Red Table thing, I only knew about that after it was all coming out to do with what was said, which I thought was it was pretty weird. I thought it's weird that you're addressing these things in this way. I thought it was pretty weird. But yeah, it is what it is. It's all come out now, and I'm like, okay, all right, fair enough. All right.
I think what they're trying to do is find any way to capitalize of anything that happens in their life that leaks into public eye, capitalize of it. Because if anyone's going to know, let me tell you, and let me get the views on it, and let me get paid for it, and that's what they do. But they haven't realized. Well, I think they probably realize now, is that Chris Rock's done the exact flip to that. Is that everyone's going to get slapped? He does the whole show on it. Did you know that Marlon Wayans actually had a whole segment in his stand-up comedy show on? I think it was on HBO Max, I believe, and did a whole segment. Oh yeah, imagine. It's not even your thing, but it's had a whole segment about the thing.
It's content. We live in a post-Kardashian world where everything can be commodified for content.
It's true.
It's monetizing it. You're monetizing it.
They tapped into a formula that works, and a lot of stars now kind of emulate that. It's as you said with Marlon Wayans. I haven't seen it myself, but I was aware of that. It just becomes fodder for content.
Yeah,
and a lot of memes.
Yeah, a whole lot of memes. But I think, you know what? I don't think anything has been as explosive at one of those events in a long time, and it needed to happen at some point, didn't it?
Well, the last one was for Moonlight, when they said that La La Land won Best Film.
Oh
yes.
That got me angry. That did, because Moonlight is by far one of the best films like in the last 10 years.
I haven't yet seen Moonlight, but I will get around to watching that.
I love that film.
Wow.
And then previous to that is when what's his name? John Travolta kind of messed up Idina Menzel's name. That became a whole meme. Those are a couple of ones where, like, the Oscars, that really kind of
it's a
bit
of a mad one.
Right, guys. Okay, let's go on to what we're going to a bit of geek talk. All right, guys. I thought, you know what, we're going to talk about DC and Marvel again, because obviously there's a lot going on. DC are determined to sort of implode, and I don't get it. Like why? Like, what are they doing? Like, so. From what I've heard recently, they've turned on The Rock. They're like, Rock, you're to blame to why Shazam 2 is not done very well. You're getting fired. It's just like, because you apparently Rock
didn't do well either.
No, apparently no. I heard that as well. Yeah, I heard that Black Adam didn't meet expectations as well.
Yeah.
So look, what is going on? Because obviously the Flash movie it's going to come out in June. I think like towards the end of June. The Flash movie, Flashpoint, is about to come out. So they've actually finally got that film done. I think it's like 5 or 6 years, like behind schedule or something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah, they did a massive like kind of timeline of all the films that were going to be released. About 6-7 years ago?
Yeah.
I remember that. I mean, there was supposed to be like a cyborg film and stuff like that.
It's unbelievable. So, do you think they're just throwing it away? Because I've said this before. For me, I believe that DC has the best characters in a sense, especially when it comes to the villains. DC is the best one. So if they've got the best material in the sense, or the best sort of characters to work from, why are they not putting out better content?
Because they're trying to emulate a model that's not for them. We had this conversation where I said that the whole thing about them having a universe, it's baked into DC Comics where it never really has ever worked. And the thing is that the best DC stories are non-continuity ones. So
the standalone stories.
Yeah. So if DC would work, DC in itself as a like for comics works best when it is standalone stories. Marvel has always been baked. It has been baked in since 1961. Has always been more of a cohesive universe.
Okay.
So the only time Marvel's actually reset their universe was Secret Wars in 2016, 2017. That's the first time they actually ever reset the whole thing. DC's done since 1985. DC's done that about 3-4 times.
Right. Okay.
So it's because things just get out of whack to the point that they basically build a story where they destroy the universe and just start again.
And
even when Marvel did do that, they didn't even really erase continuity, really, where DC have. So in the movies, yes, you are right. The thing where it actually does work is, but it's not as mainstream as it should be, is their animation. Their animation, they've been doing that for years now, where they've been doing standalone stories and ones that are in like its own continuity, and it's worked.
Yeah.
But they see the success of what Kevin Feige's done at Marvel, and they want that, but it doesn't work that way, and that's the reason why they have the best villains and stuff like that. I wouldn't say they have the best villains, but I can say that they have compelling villains because they are able to do things that being in continuity wouldn't allow you to do.
So what about multiverse? Can't you be in continuity and can't you have your cake and eat it? Because if you've got multiverse, which obviously both Marvel and DC lean into multiverse storylines, then can't you break continuity because of the multiverse in one portion of the multiverse, but keep an overall continuity anyway?
Yeah, you can. I mean, DC's the first one to do that. Flash. I don't want to. I'm not 100%. If I remember correctly, it's Flash 141, Flash of Two Worlds, where basically you have the golden age of comics, which is from the 30s to about 1960s.
Why is it called the golden age? Just explain that for the viewers that are going to
basically it's the first. It was like basically the first age of superhero comics.
Okay.
And then DC essentially rebooted that with the Flash, basically because the original Flash, his name was Jay Garrick. The most famous is not Wally West, was Barry Allen. Now Barry Allen was the Flash, and they made the comic where he read the original character as a comic, and was inspired to be the Flash because he read the comics of the original Flash. So what they did, but then in Flash, I think it's Flash 141. I'm not 100% about what the exact issue, but that established that both Flashes actually were both Flashes were actually off different universes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So then that's when we had the whole idea of Earth 1 and Earth 2.
Yeah.
And then that's how they kind of worked out a way of having the Golden Age continuity and the Silver Age continuity.
Yeah.
So that they could tell both sets of stories. So it was actually DC who actually started that off, because originally it wasn't the Justice League. The first ever super team, which was multiple superheroes in one team, was the Justice Society of America.
Yeah. JSA, yeah.
But then when the Silver Age happened, they decided that they wanted to update that, and they called it the Justice League of America.
Right. Okay.
But Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman were all in the Justice Society.
Yeah.
But because it was a new universe, that never happened. So they made it that they were originals of the Justice League. So they had to have a universe now.
Basically.
They basically retconned it that was a separate universe. That was Earth 2. So just to explain that DC was actually the one that actually kind of like had the ball rolling on a multiverse.
Yeah.
But then the thing is that it can get after a while that gets really, really unwieldy. Especially
of course it was.
The way that DC was built, it wasn't actually Detective Comics and oh gosh, I can't remember. There was another comic book company, and they both merged because Wonder Woman isn't originally DC. She's actually from another comic company, and they merged, and then that's when that happened. And I mean, Fawcett Comics is where Shazam, Captain Marvel comes from. Captain Marvel actually was selling more in the late 30s than Superman was, and that's why DC actually sued them, saying that basically Captain Marvel is essentially Superman, which is kind of true. But that's by the by. But Fawcett Comics folded in, I think, the 70s, and got folded into the DC continuity, but they became a separate universe.
Yeah.
So then when it came to 1985, they decided to do what was called the Crisis of Infinite Earths, where they basically were going to wipe the slate clean and just make one single cohesive universe. So you know, it was over like 40 years of like basically you'd read a comic and you'd be like, okay, I know this happened to this character, but did it really happen to this character, or is it because this story doesn't actually link up with things that happened before? Then it was like, oh, this is Earth 2, this is Earth 3, and stuff like that. So it can actually get a little bit complicated in that way. But then the thing is, Crisis of Infinite Earths, they tried to wipe the slate clean, but then they wanted to keep like the continuity of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So in 1993, 1994, they did Zero Hour, the Crisis in Time, so they could try and fix all of that continuity.
Oh my gosh.
100% work. That's when I first started to read DC, when 0 Hour happened. Then I think it was early 2000, we had Infinite Crisis. Then late 2000, we had Final Crisis. Every time, whenever you hear a comic book series called with the name Crisis, it's basically it's a major DC event, and usually it is to wipe the slate clean. The only time that actually happened when it wasn't actually called the Crisis was Flashpoint, the actual comic book, the Flashpoint, where that started the New 52 in 2011. Which they basically tried to make all the characters younger and everything like that. So that was a whole other thing. But what it is like they tell these stories, and then because of kind of continuity being in separate places, it does make it really difficult for readers. So having a cohesive multiverse without like a really, really specific through line is really, really difficult.
So you need a central, like you say, a central sort of grounding point to ground. So even if you're having other, because the idea is you can do all these different stories. You can have, so in one universe, like you get with the Flashpoint, you can have like a Bizarro Superman or something like that. So you can flip it round and have the good guys be the bad guys and the bad guys be the good guys. That's really interesting. Yeah. Right, so that's really on Earth 3. So that's really interesting, because if you're used to characters always being the good guy, and then you read suddenly that they're not, that can bring a really good shift in the narrative, and it makes it quite interesting. Like, oh, okay, this what would Dark Superman be like, or what would a Dark Batman be like? That's really interesting stuff. But like you say, there has to be a sort of grounding point to ground all these different universes that are popping off left, right, and center, or else, like you say, it gets unyielding. It's all over the place, and you can't kind of calibrate yourself to, okay, which universe are we talking about now? And how do it? Whereas Marvel seem to be able to do it very easily, and it doesn't seem to be confusing at all.
Yeah, that's true. But then there is caveats to that,
right?
Because you have there's certain stories you can't tell because of that. Like, you couldn't make a Marvel version of Superman Red Sun, I don't think. I don't know if you've ever heard of that story. You know, the whole idea that Superman landed from space and he landed in Kansas, and Mara and Pa Kent found him.
It's the Russian version one, isn't it?
Basically, yeah. I
saw the animated one.
He landed in Russia.
Yeah.
So he became the Superman of Russia.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really tell that story in the Marvel universe without it. That doesn't make sense. It's not kind of baked into the kind of DNA of how stories are told there. Or you couldn't have anything like Gotham by Gaslight, which is a Batman story that's set in Victorian England, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can't really tell those kind of stories.
So you can't mess with the physics of it too much in that type of scenario, unless you're having it as a standalone story that doesn't interfere with continuity as a whole.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, Marvel did do 1602, which is kind of like basically all the Marvel characters if they were all in kind of the Elizabethan times and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. And did that?
But it was completely separate. It did work. It was written by Neil Gaiman, which you know wrote Sandman and stuff like that. So it was brilliant. But you know, it has no effect on anything else. But those kind of stories are very, very few and far between in Marvel. While in DC, they actually used to have a label just called Elseworlds, where they used to just put it on their comics, and you'd be like, this is completely out of continuity. And some of the best stories are from that.
Yeah, so and at least when it says Elseworlds, and obviously I've seen that on the TV shows to do Elseworlds as well recently. Because the DC TV shows I think are pretty good. To be fair, I like the DC TV shows. I mean, Alex is going back, especially. I mean, I was a Smallville guy, so man, like Smallville for me, Alex. We were just talking about like DC shows. So Smallville for me was like one of the greatest TV shows ever. Yeah, okay, it had issues in terms of some of the production values and things like that, because you get that with who is it that does that now for DC? It's the I forgot the name of the studio that did it for them, but basically, I know the production values weren't always the best, but Smallville for me was just like an amazing show that showed what you could do with a Superman type show on TV rather than just at the cinema sort of thing.
Okay.
So Big Small. Now, in terms of what you're saying here to do with the comic books, I totally agree with that. In terms of that, the DNA of Marvel is different to DC, and DC have tried to copy that, because you would copy that, wouldn't you, Alex? What do you think? Like, if you see a company doing something great and it works, like, why wouldn't you try and copy it and think, okay, that actually is a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to do it, but I think in terms of experience and knowledge of your target audience and how you actually plan to execute it all is a totally different thing, isn't it, really? Because as much as you can say, oh, we're both comic books, we're both trying to reach a mass audience, you can't, your makeup won't always be the same way. It won't always be the same, and you won't always have the same trajectory of where you're going to go in terms of creating content. I just think DC should have really thought about it, not trying to copy, and really thought about, okay, what can we do different to make our brand stronger? Obviously, I don't know about the money aspects of, obviously, Disney bought Marvel. So that's a whole lot of experience, a whole lot of whatever. Their whole universe could take over Marvel and make it big, and that's what they've done. So in terms of DC,
but DC's been owned by Warner Brothers since the 70s.
They've got money.
It's just never pulled the trigger.
But why don't you think they pulled the trigger? Why don't you think they did it?
Well, I think though, a lot of these companies, I think Lord of the Rings was a big thing to do with what happened, because when Lord of the Rings did the 3 movies, and the depth they went in terms of showing how big you could make a production, like, because really, if you think about it, I don't think there was anything on the level of Lord of the Rings before Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings took it to the next level. And I think a lot of these companies were like, oh, hang on a minute. And yeah, you can say Star Wars is huge and whatever, but I think Lord of the Rings, the way that they did it, as in the continuity and putting the 3 films so close together and how big all 3 films were, it was a shift. And Lord of the Rings, they took a lot of money. They took a lot of money for those 3 films, and rightly so, because they're really good films. And I think that everybody else, including for Lucasfilm, everybody else was like, wow, okay, you can go big and you can actually do really well if you do it properly. And I think Alex, what you're saying there.
Yeah, I get that. I read a book a few years ago about the early days of Marvel. I can't remember what it's called now, but basically from the early 70s, Stan Lee basically kind of like essentially left Marvel and was basically in Hollywood really, really trying to sell like Marvel characters, the IP to anyone to try and get them in, get these things done. It's like the industry just wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, at that same time, DC was actually owned by Warner Brothers at the time. So it was just one of those things. I think it was just the timing, and I think what Kevin Feige did was that dramatic shift. I get what you're saying about like Lord of the Rings, but when he basically brought back essentially serialized storytelling in the cinema, I mean that's something that's not even new. I mean, Flash Gordon and even the original Batman was actually a Saturday serial you used to go to the cinemas to watch.
Yeah.
I've actually seen those. So he brought back serialized kind of storytelling. I think where the wheels kind of fallen off is kind of the TV shows have kind of muddied it a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's a really good point. Because do you think? Because obviously that's happening with Star Wars as well. Obviously the new sort of fad. Well, it's not really a fad, really. It's a direction things have gone. Is streaming TV, big budget streaming TV shows, and obviously, Netflix are to blame for this, because of how well they've done it, and everyone else is like, okay, yeah, we're going to copy these guys. So let's. I remember like all the Marvel shows were coming out on Netflix, a few years ago. This is before, and then obviously they've thought, oh, hang on, why don't we just put it on our own platform instead, sort of thing. So, do you think that that's taken away from the experience of these big budget films, like the streaming TV shows? Like you say, it's muddy in the water a little bit. Is that a problematic?
I think the execution right now is not the best.
Right.
I think that's the problem right now.
So if you think of like, are you talking about sort of like Zack Snyder to do with his? I know you're a big fan of Zack Snyder, Omar. So, so you think that he's at fault for some of this with his Justice League special edition?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that was just, let's completely just not understand what the source material is.
I'm certainly winding you up now.
But I think with the TV shows, especially the length of what they are, I think to know that you're going to go to the cinema, but you're going to have to watch 8 hours of a certain show. I think that's a lot to ask, like just the general public.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alex?
Well, Alex, you know what? I also wanted to pick up with this, Alex, as well. What Alex said to do with, because Alex was on about the tone of DC being different to Marvel. Because a lot of people were complaining that the Marvel, the Justice League films were too dark, and do you know what I mean? Like it was too gritty, and it was like which is quite interesting because they didn't copy Marvel. Their Marvel was a much lighter tone in terms of how, you know what I mean? That was the one thing they didn't actually copy, which people complained about. But yeah, Alex, I'll bring that back to you.
I think I'll try and incorporate the two. I think for one, I think DC could have had something going in terms of targeting the audience that were originally reading the comics. Keeping it dark wouldn't have been an issue, because at the end of the day, if people are still thinking comics are for those particular comics are for children, you know, people still want to have a bit of nostalgia. We had a whole stint of where, you know, in the early 2000s, between like 2011, and so we had like a lot of nostalgia stuff. Like people wanted to look back on what we had and have it reimagined. They wanted to had the desire to see stuff reimagined, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I would say. But I think it's totally fine. But I think what the issue is with the incorporation of high-end TV. So the high-end TVs are like the Mandalorian series. The Marvel one, that it's like almost like Miss Marvel, like Captain Marvel, but it's a young girl on
Miss
Disney.
Marvel.
Miss Marvel.
I like
these
that.
sort of things. Yeah, and like even She-Hulk as well. They make the franchises more palatable, more bite-sized, more easier to introduce people into these sort of franchises, and they don't necessarily have to commit to 90 minutes, you know, of a film. They can listen, they can watch for 30 minutes and boom. Sometimes what happens with that is that some of their source material gets watered down because they want to stretch it out. It's almost like putting water in milk to make it last longer. And sometimes that's what happens. And I see what Omar's on about, where the execution is not as good because one, they probably don't have the high-end TVs, doesn't have the same budget as a feature film. And two, because you're trying to make something last longer over a period of time, you're trying to stretch out certain things that probably don't need to be stretched out. Maybe they could focus on certain other character narrative arcs which are missed. But you know, depending on who's paying for it and what characters they want to bring to life, you know, it's all down to the people who are controlling the narrative of the storylines, really. So I think it's a bit half and half, really. It's a bit watered down, but I think I like it, but at the same time I think it can be ruined in some cases.
That's a really good point.
Even if you think about even through the 90s and early 2000s, the Paul Dini verse, like the animated Batman show, led up to the Justice League, that it wasn't lighthearted, it wasn't dark, but it was essentially all the kind of ingredients of what DC was. Like I always look at that as kind of really showing the essence of what like the Justice League is, what JSA is, what like even Teen Titans. Like it really does kind of bring those things to the fore, but they just never could. Unfortunately, they could never translate that into live action. Which the thing, that's what I'm saying. That what's really sad is, what I think is the issue with DC, is that they have the potential, they have the characters, they have the storylines. They even have executed it correctly in animation. To just live action, they just wanted to copy a model that's not actually fit for the storytelling that they excel in.
So Omar, quick question. How would you encapsulate the differences between the two universes? You've kind of alluded to it already in terms of their DNA is different. What is the ethos difference in terms of the two universes of the DCEU and Marvel's universe? What is the ethos difference in terms of the philosophy of the two different universes?
I think the most famous quotes that kind of will show you exactly what Marvel's ethos was Stan Lee always said that the Marvel universe is the world outside your window. So it was always supposed to be grounded. The reason why most of the superheroes are in New York is because most of the writers and artists were in New York. Like Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, that the actual, I can't remember what the actual address is, but that's the address of one of the artists.
Oh wow, yeah, amazing.
You know, where Ben Grimm grew up on Yancey Street is where Jack Kirby grew up. Like it was.
Oh wow.
It's grounded in that way, and you know that's why even when you talk about a cohesive universe, like in the 60s and 70s, you would have Spider-Man swinging through, you know, because he was like, you know, down in Brooklyn and Queens and that, and then you'd like they would have shots where you would see like Thor flying in the sky, and then it would have like a little caption saying, if you want to know where Thor's going, read, you know, issue whatever.
Ah, so amazing.
It was always cohesive because it was supposed to be grounded in the real world.
Yeah.
Where DC is like, it's a pantheon.
Explain that to the audience. Pantheon.
Well, early 90s, after the Detroit era, which I don't want to talk about, that was a lame era of Justice League. But when they got kind of like revitalized by Grant Morrison in the early to mid 90s, he brought back the original 7, a bit like how, you know, the boys parody it, the 7.
Yeah.
Where they are supposed to be gods among men.
Okay.
They are the pantheon. You know what I mean? You can look at the allegories, the Flashes, Hermes.
Yeah.
You know,
goes into the Greek religion and the Greek philosophy.
You've got all of that. And when they lean into those kind of things, that's when you like the storytelling cooks. You know, one of the most famous stories in DC is Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
When basically the gods leave Earth for the next generation to kind of rule, essentially. And they mess up, so the old gods essentially have to come back and sort things out. Well, Superman, Lois Lane gets killed, and Superman basically quits. And you know, it's the kids of the superheroes that become like the heroes, and they don't really care about the humans. And then it took a whole load of people to convince Superman to return, and that's basically the story.
It's the old Superman you see, isn't it? That comes back. It's an older.
Yeah. I mean, and then you've got even like the whole idea, like he couldn't really make the fourth World Saga in Marvel, which is when Jack Kirby moved from Marvel to DC. He had where basically essentially the old gods died. Here comes the new gods. You know, that's where we have Darkseid from. He's one of the new gods.
Do you think so? Talking about Darkseid and obviously like the villains, do you think Darkseid has the potential to be a great villain? If you think of him, would you put him as like on the almost like DC's version of a Thanos, or not? What would you say there?
Well, even though they're not supposed to be linked, they are linked. Both of the interesting. You both made that comparison because Thanos and Darkseid are essentially two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, they were actually published within months of each other. So it wasn't like Marvel was copying DC or DC copying Marvel, because Jim Starlin created Thanos.
Was that mid-90s?
No, late 70s. Late 70s happened. Because the Infinity Gauntlet was 1990, I think it was. Which what basically the whole first story of Marvel MCU has been anyway. But like he is that level. I mean, he's, you know, someone who has beat Superman
Yeah,
I've always liked him because I've always liked his drive. And that's an interesting thing too. Like Thanos, I know in the MCU they kind of changed it to that his whole thing was balance in the universe. But his whole thing in the comics was that he was in love with the personification of death. And he just wanted to kill everyone so that he could please death.
Yeah.
While Darkseid's whole thing is that he's searching for the anti-life equation, which is basically subjugating the whole universe.
Yeah, it's a completely different philosophy and idea, isn't it? Darkseid is basically like Palpatine. He's essentially like the Emperor in Star Wars. He's trying to control everybody. He wants an empire, and he wants to be the top of the pyramid.
Yeah,
and everyone else is
what is life without freedom? That's the anti-life equation.
Yeah, brilliant, guys. Are there any other villains in DC or Marvel that you think stand out? I mean, for me, I enjoy Bane, but I enjoyed Bane from the Nolan film. I thought Tom Hardy played Bane really well.
So another film where you can't understand what you're saying.
Do you know what? I could understand everything that Bane was saying. I don't know what it is with everybody else. I knew everything. Most of what he said, I understood what he was saying. I love the fact that I loved his fight against Batman and how brutal it was, and I loved how like he's beating Batman up and talking to him at the same time as if they're having a conversation about, as if it's like two people talking about a football team and saying, "Oh, my team's better than yours." It was just like, I thought that was the kind of juxtaposition between the physicality of it, but also the verbal conversation as well. Because Bane was very calm as he's beating Batman up. He's very calm and methodical. And even in his speech, he's quite calm and methodical as well. And I thought that worked really well as a great sort of piece of sort of cinema.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bane's an interesting character anyway. I mean, he wasn't created for this, but his most famous story is Nightfall, which I don't know if you've heard of.
No.
Which Nolan lifted an image straight from that book of when Bane essentially breaks Batman's back.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
When you see, there's a picture of Bane basically his Batman's on his knee, just absolutely breaks.
You see that in the film.
Yeah, and you see that straight. That's in the film.
Yeah.
But in the comics, he actually breaks his back, and Bruce Wayne basically can't walk. And there's a new Batman who's not actually one of the Batman family. He essentially becomes a character called Azrael later, but it was actually built as a commentary on 90s grimdark comics. The whole thing that Zack Snyder thinks that DC is, they actually critiqued that with Bane. Going to that extreme violence and stuff like that was critiqued, because then what they did is they brought in a new Batman, which basically had guns, armor, and all this kind of stuff, and basically kind of showed how that idea just doesn't work in that universe. And then when Batman had to come back and be like, this is not basically this is not the way to do things. So like Bane was actually created to actually critique and basically say that basically the Snyderverse is not actually the valid way of doing things.
Oh wow. Alex, we'll get a few thoughts from yourself, and then as we'll wrap it up now, because gents, we've had a really good talk. We've been cooking again. We'll get a few thoughts from you, and then we'll round it up. Alex, I think Alex is frozen.
Yeah, I don't think he's had the best connection.
Bless his heart, man. But you know, he's kept going though. He's kept going, Alex. You have kept going. Bless your heart. So Alex, you've turned into a robot. So we'll. You've turned into a robot.
Have you got me?
I got you now. It's got time to transform. You've got Optimus Prime, man.
It sounds like Soundwave.
Bumblebee. Alex has turned into Bumblebee. All right, Alex, we'll leave you there. You're frozen, immortalized. You actually look like Han Solo in Carbonite. You're the black Han Solo, immortalized in Carbonite. And I know you got engaged recently, so that's obviously your Princess Leia, and you are the Han Solo. So there you are. All right, we'll wrap it up now because gents, we've had a good stream. We've had a lot of fun, and I'll get these guys back on it again. And probably we'll give them a bit of time because everybody's busy, but we'll get you guys back on again. We'll see if the Mandalorian, because there's a lot of talk to do Mandalorian as well, Omar. So I want to get you back on again for a Mandalorian episode once Mando's finished.
Yeah, a couple of weeks time, innit?
Yeah, because I'm still on the new episode. I've watched about 20 minutes of it, and it's really good. Like, it's really, really good.
I finished it last night.
Right. Okay. So but because a lot of fans were kicking off about the previous episode, the one that had Jack Black in and Lizzo.
That was amazing.
I think what was happening, why people were kicking off for me, is because it was a diversion, wasn't it? So it was the first half an hour of that was a filler of almost felt like a bit of a filler episode, and then the last 10 minutes brought you right to the actual story. You're back.
No, but that was the great thing. One of the things in the first season of Mandalorian was these like short little stories that you didn't think meant anything, but by the end you like, oh, it actually works in like the grand narrative arc, and that's exactly what that episode was. That's what I loved about it. It was a lovely like, oh, Mandalorian do like Bo-Katan and Jin doing Mandalorian things.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched that, I picked out loads of different things from that because I don't know if it's just me, but I picked out I thought that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are just having a lot of fun, and they're just having a laugh here. So like some of that episode that it reminded me, part of it reminded me of Blade Runner. Part of it reminded me of what's that animated one, WALL-E?
Yeah,
with the droids. That was 100% WALL-E, and how the people in that city don't want to work, and the droids do everything. That's WALL-E. And then there was something else in a part of it as well. What was it that it was like?
Well, there was a complete lift off iRobot.
Yeah. With the part of who's the droid killer that's wiping everybody out. So yeah, there's they put so many different things in there, and also no batteries included.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah,
they put that in there. So there's loads of different stuff that they just whacked in there. But one thing what I loved about the episode was all the droids. Like there were so many of them, and you can tell that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they put a lot of love and care in that show. You can tell.
Oh yeah.
You can tell it's like it is exquisite. Just look at the robots, the droids. Just look at that. Each single one of that. Look how much effort goes into that.
Well, we know that they love Mandalorian because they even in Boba Fett they had to bring in the Mandalorian. So.
Which was controversial in itself because why are you in this show for?
They got bored of Boba Fett. They wanted to bring Jim.
That's another episode.
To be like back in the day.
Yeah.
With Xena the Warrior Princess and Hercules. They're both filmed on the same set. And then one day they ran onto each other's set.
Oh my god, Alex, are you enjoying Mandalorian? Are you up to date with it, with the new season?
Do you know I'm watching? I've started the new season of when I don't know if it's a spoiler for somebody. If you haven't watched it now, probably won't do. But when he's going to get purified again, and I think it's very
baptism.
Yeah, baptism. He's getting baptized. Yeah, Mandalorian. He knows the Lord.
He's born again now. He's born again.
But it's so like spiritualism, mechanics, and metal, those sort of things, those little things. I'm like, this is good storytelling. This is like, because I think one thing I always say that parables are still important. You can tell stories, and if people don't understand it, say it in a way that people can understand it. So like certain things, certain philosophies and things, I think Like, I think it's incredible what they do with it, and I am enjoying it. I've been watching it bit by bit. I haven't been watching it totally because I've been busy doing other things like working and stuff like that. But I'm really enjoying it. I enjoyed the first season. First season, I was like, "This is the best thing that ever come on Disney Channel. Oh, this is the best thing." This like, all right, Disney Plus. This is it. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Really am.
Marvelous. Alex, you've been unfrozen out of the carbonite. It's Return of the Jedi. You've been liberated, emancipation.
Yes,
You're free, brother. You're free.
That's on 3.0, Alex 3.0. Every time I've come off, I've added a number on, So
I noticed that.
Right. See, it's guys, the Easter eggs, guys. It's the Easter eggs you should look out for.
That's it, man. We're cooking. We're cooking, brother. I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you for this stream, guys. Omar, Alex, awesome as always. Phenomenal, guys. You know your stuff. You'll be back on Christian Fandom Geek very soon. This has been a great episode. Red 5 Fandom Collective. This has been Geek Talk with the lads. DC, Marvel. Peace.